Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations That Matter, a short 5-part series where we're exploring the content and context of business interactions. I'm Lewis Richardson, and I'm going to serve as your guide as we take a closer and curious look at what we tend to do instinctively and how we can possibly do it better. For this session, we're going to explore the introductory conversation. You might best imagine this as the executive summary. It should clearly explain why the client should be considering this journey. The conversation is built on paying attention. Harry Selfridge, founder of the London-based department store that bears his name, once said, "People will sit up and take notice if you sit up and take notice of what makes them sit up and take notice." To paraphrase, people will be interested in those things that they find interesting. And Jeffrey Gitomer, the best-selling author of sales books, said, "If people say they aren't interested, what they're really saying is, you're not interesting." The goal of an introductory conversation is simply to get your listener to believe what you have to say is interesting. Nothing more. It's not to sell them or to bring them to some level of commitment. It's just about getting them to sit up and take notice. It's about getting them to understand why they should be sitting up and taking notice. Think about your own interactions. One of the first questions you're sorting out when approached by someone is why? Why is this person coming to me? Why should I care about this? Why should I invest my valuable time with this person? Introductory conversations are all about the why, and it can't be complicated. Have you ever asked someone to explain why and they went off on some long-winded explanation that seemed to last forever? If you're like most people, somewhere after the first couple of minutes, you recognize they're taking you on a mental trip to nowhere. And at that point, whether intentional or not, your brain shuts off. Your introductory conversation should be concise and well-rehearsed. Ask yourself the question, if I were in their position, why would I be interested in this? If you can't answer that to your satisfaction, imagine the challenge you're putting on the unsuspecting prospect. When introducing your why, keep it simple and straightforward. Don't burden the listener with lots of facts and figures. Think about the difference of a lawyer's opening statement and closing argument. Just the names alone set the tone. The opening is where you endear the listener, you lower their shields, and they begin to trust you. Humility can help you be approachable and human. And instead of stating, "we think," try, "we'd invite you to consider." Instead of, "our approach is," try, "well, we believe." And instead of, "here's what you should do," try, "imagine if." I believe that if you can't state your why in 5 minutes or less, you either don't know your subject well enough or you don't care enough to make it concise. And you have to decide the tone best suited for your audience. But I found having a mindset and vocabulary that gives a sense of you humbly serving a perspective or sharing ideas for their consideration can go a long way in gaining interest. Arrogance can be off-putting. Without sounding redundant, your introductory conversation should be interesting. By that I mean it should contain language that sparks their imagination or challenges their preconceptions, or perhaps states something in a way they've never considered. Using analogies and metaphors can help drive interest. Let's consider an audience of data management professionals involved in migration between systems. You could introduce yourself as, "Hi, we're in the DNA business." To which they would think, "What?" And by the way, you have their attention. And then you continue by saying, "Think about how migration projects normally happen. It's a bit like a blood transfusion. Your company depends on its data to circulate properly through its processes in order to do business, to live. And historically, migrations are just a process of moving data from one place to the other. And like in transfusions, there might be some filtering along the way, but it's primarily a matter of movement. Now, don't be mistaken. We do migrations as good as, if not better than everyone else. We've done thousands with 100% success. But it's that experience that's taught us that it's not enough just to move the data. During the process, significant insights are discovered about the data and subsequently your business. The rules, the policies, practices, and nuances that make your business uniquely yours. These are directly correlated to your business itself. You're basically your company's DNA. We collect and curate that DNA so the migration itself is improved, but more importantly, so that knowledge of your DNA can be leveraged in future data applications and projects. Now, this specific example may not resonate with every audience, but it should serve as an example of how you might reframe the challenge in a way that causes your prospects to imagine and think. If you do that, you're likely to be perceived as interesting. It's unlikely any other migration vendor came in and started talking to them about DNA. And when possible, your introductory conversation should offer a unique and differentiating point of view or belief. As we look at the remaining conversations in the belief journey, you'll see how this introductory conversation can set the stage for things to come. Statements that begin with "we believe" can be powerful stakes to put in the ground from which you can progress in later interactions, especially if your belief can be put in contrast with the competition. Now, I'd encourage you to take a few minutes and go to the workbook page for this session. Hopefully, it'll stretch you into considering things you've heard or said, or hopefully prompt you to list specific actions you can take to build and deliver interesting introductory conversations. So join us next time as we explore discovery conversations.